what Donald Trump was asking, somehow begging, if I can put it this way, other countries to join him in the Strait of Hormuz to facilitate, the passage of tankers in this strait. And so far, what we've learned from I'm quoting the German government. So, what does Trump expect from a handful of European frigates that the powerful U.S. Navy can't do? This is not our war, and we didn't start it. Australia, we won't be sending a ship to the Strait of Hormuz. The United Kingdom, reopening the strait is not a simple task. The United Kingdom will not be drawn into a wider war. And France, there is no question of sending any vessels to the Strait of Hormuz. Japan, circumstances do not warrant military participation for Japan. When it comes to China, no comment. And what is happening, Pepe? Because Donald Trump somehow thought at least he can make some political move, if not militarily. But it doesn't seem that would be the case. Your understanding of that?
Well, even if most of these governments that you listed are nearly brain dead, they're not totally dumb. They have at least analysts or are people working in their foreign offices that have at least a basic idea of what's really going on in the Strait of Hormuz. And of course, if they're monitoring what Foreign Minister Arakchi, the leader of the Majlis, Kalibaf, several layers of IRGC officers are saying, they understand that the Strait of Hormuz, for all practical purposes, is not blocked, but it's blocked for any ship that has US, Israeli, or hostile, which means the whole of NATO interests against Iran. It's open for everybody else, and everybody else can pick up the phone, write a letter, contact the Iranians, and try to come up with a deal, which is, for instance, what the Bangladeshis did. Oil tankers and gas tankers going to Bangladesh, now they have free passage. India is an immensely complicated story. Only a few, if I'm not mistaken, only 2 Indian tankers so far got free passage, but that was a tit-for-tat deal concerning Iranian tankers that were stranded somewhere in India or near India. That's a different story. So this probably will be negotiated case by case. After the betrayal of Iran by India, largely documented, provoking reactions from some of the best Indian scholars, military analysts, diplomats who are not allied with Modi and the BJP. They are appalled. They said that the Indian foreign policy simply disappeared, and now obviously our dreams of being leader of the global South vanished. And of course, the West as a whole. It won't be open for the West, period. And there's not even negotiation involved. So these governments, once again, if they are not completely brain dead, they know that if they get into this hastily disorganized, not even organized, Trump flotilla to go to liberate the Strait of Hormuz, they are going to get into a massive black void, which will include, of course, lots of casualties for their striking force. So this is not going to move. And the desperation on Neo Caligula, we can call him a Neo Crassus as well. I'm working tomorrow on a column comparing Crassus with Trump, even though he was not an emperor. He was a member of the triumvirate, but the psychology is the same. They know that this is absolutely impossible. And obviously, around the circle that actually talks to Trump and he listens to, which is probably not more than 5 or 6 people, exaggerating 10, like people in the Pentagon with actual, even remote war experience, or independent analysts, former CIA analysts, for instance. He doesn't listen to these people, even some who used to be in contact with him. For instance, Colonel McGregor. Trump only listens to that massive amount of fake news emanating from Fox News and people like Hegseth. Oh, no, not Hegseth. Let's rearrange this. The push-up clown Christian Zionist posing as Secretary of Forever Wars. This is what the head of the Pentagon is now in this administration. Rubio, Guzano Rubio, he could not point Iran on a map, in fact. And that's it. He already sidelined J.D. Vance and Tulsi Gabbard, members of his own administration. So he only listens to sycophants and vassals and people with an extremely limited, if I would say less than zero understanding of what's happening in the battlefield at the moment, not to mention how the Iranian system works and how is it working under the new supreme leader, Mossadegh Khamenei. So this is we're going to be following this new plot twist for a while, assuming the Americans are able to mount a strike force, and assuming they are able to send this strike force from somewhere in the Arabian Sea towards the Gulf of Oman and the Persian Gulf, or from the Red Sea, crossing the Bab el-Mandeb, and then go closer to the Persian Gulf. So it's a series of ifs, one more lethal and volatile than the other. The absolute key issue, Nima, which is it's the theme of my next column, which is going to be published in the Cradle probably tomorrow. Already sent it, but it takes a while for them because they had to translate it into Turkish and Arabic. So it takes a while, so it's published usually the next day. Is this lethal blow against the petro yuan? And that's what driving not only Neo Caligula or Neo Crassus, but the sycophants around him, and especially the American elites in the background who gave the go-ahead for this war. Because if this goes on for an extra few weeks, this is the beginning of the end of the petrodollar. And that means is the beginning of the end of unilateral hegemonic empire ruling over virtually most of the planet. And that's where we are now. Some people, at least in the US, are realizing how big the stakes are. And there's no turning back. And this is what we hear from the Iranians day after day. Even if Trump would, even if, which we know it's not going to happen, he's a prisoner in the labyrinth of his own hubris. So he cannot back down. He cannot confess that he lost his bet. Even if he would say in the next few days, obviously in one of those interminable rambling posts, okay, we won. We won, we decimated everything, their air force, their navy, we were decimating Iran, so I proclaimed victory and that's it. That's the end. This would not be the end because Iran would continue. And all the US interests in Israel itself, and all across West Asia would continue to be attacked by Iran. So there will be no ceasefire. And now Arakshi is saying it bluntly, no ceasefire. So everybody with an IQ of 10 can understand the Iranian position. So there's no way out for him. And that's the problem, Nima. He's going to get even more dangerous than he already is.
Yeah. Pepe, you mentioned something so important, in my opinion, that is the shift from petrodollar to petro yuan. And it's a financial nuclear move, I would assume. It's not something
Yes.
so small to be ignored. It's huge what is going on. What is the outcome of that? How do you see the, because for many years we were talking about, I think on my side, on my understanding, that if the United States wants something, a strategic partner in the Middle East, in the West Asia, that would be Iran, for example, for before. But
Mm-hmm.
that was not the American agenda, because the foreign policy of America, of the United States, is run by Israelis, is run by Netanyahu and
Mm-hmm.
in Israel. That's why I think we are far away. We can ignore that. The United States is not going to change its attitude. It's going to great length to destroy Iran and break down Iran in provinces. And you see a new partnership coming out of the conflicts, both in Ukraine and in the Middle East. A new, it's this is a partnership. It goes beyond alliance, Pepe. It's not something as we saw with the G7 or with NATO. It's something different. It is of different nature. And how do you understand this sort of partnership that is shaping? I think it's strengthening.
This is what I explained briefly in this column. This may be, let's say, a pre-column to a much deeper essay later on as the war progresses, of course. But the key, in fact, one of the key items which I had to re-stress, I'm sorry, all over again, is how the petrodollar is an absolutely massive scam that the Americans thought would be forever. Since the deal was struck, no, the deal was imposed on the Arabs in 1974 after the oil shock of 1973. It's a very simple scam, but immensely effective for the hegemonic power. So they forced the GCC and OPEC, and that continued since 1974. You can only trade your oil and gas in US dollars. That's it. Nothing else is allowed. Thus, the name petrodollar. And you invest all your profits, all your surpluses in the American economy. You can buy US Treasury bonds, you can buy stocks. Nowadays, especially, you can finance our big tech investments in the US. So they have all that tsunami of funds coming from the GCC countries into the American economy. That props up the dollar. So it keeps the dollar as the reserve currency for the whole planet. That finances the industrial military complex. Very, very important. These forever wars, now being theoretically supervised by the Secretary of Forever Wars, the push-up clown, the Zionist Christian, they are financed by the GCC essentially and other OPEC contributors. And of course, the most important thing, all this tsunami of cash bails out the US from paying their unpayable debt, which is now $40 trillion. So it's a beautiful mafia-style scheme. It has been working almost like clockwork since 1974. So what do we have now? That's the beauty of the whole thing, because it's also very, very simple. Iran, with one move, and this one, that's why I say it's financially nuclear. Iran didn't need a nuclear bomb of thousands of Khorramshahr 4 missiles to change the rules of the game vis-a-vis the petrodollar. Just like that. If you block the most important choke point of trade on the planet, where you have 20% of the planet's oil moving on an everyday basis, 24/7, 365 days a year, you change the rules of the game. It's like Iran installed a toll gate at the Strait of Hormuz. You don't see the toll gate. Like when we're driving on the highway, they're okay, 10 minutes, get ready your credit card, your pass, or whatever. No, there's an invisible toll gate. And it was fascinating. There was a footage from an Iranian reporter yesterday. He was sailing the Strait of Hormuz, and he shows in the video the exact line that tankers cannot cross. And if they cross, automatically the IRGC sends drones against them. This is an absolutely fascinating piece of footage. So that's it. You install your invisible toll gate. You tell your friends, okay, you just call us, we make a deal, and your ships can go. With China, it's more than obvious because the deal has been in place for days now. In the case of Bangladesh, there were negotiations. In the case of India, case-by-case basis. And with everybody else, it's going to be case-by-case basis. But if you are from U.S., allied with Israeli interests, or from NATO, that's it. Forget it. It's blocked for you. So no wonder apparently there are more than 700 LNG tankers stranded on both sides of the Strait of Hormuz as we speak. And there are going to be more, certainly. So with one move, they turn upside down the insurance industry. No insurer will insure any tanker anywhere to cross the strait because they know it's suicidal. In terms of the effects for the western part of the global economy is a tragedy. In terms of the effects on the Asian part, it depends how they're going to deal with Iran. For instance, South Korea and Japan may approach Tehran and try to get a deal. It's still too early to tell. We don't know. Probably Japan won't do it because Japan is a vassal colony of the United States. South Korea, it's different. And in terms of China, there's no problem because China continues to receive oil and gas from Iran because they struck a deal a few days ago. And this is part of their 25-year comprehensive strategic partnership, which is Iran sells energy and China invests in building infrastructure in Iran. But the game, the petrodollar game, now it's already going upside down. And you have the whole global south paying attention and getting the message. We got the message. If we deal with petro yuan, it's all right for everybody, for us, for China, for Russia, for Iran, for BRICS, you name it. And that's it. That's going to be the new name of the game. So when the Americans look at that, Nima, no wonder they are freaking out like they haven't freaked out like this since, I don't know, forever. That's it. This is, in a nutshell, it's what's going on now. And this is why the move to block the petro yuan in one choke point, the choke point that matters the most for the global economy, is much more serious than any military defeat that Iran might inflict on Israel or the US.
Pepe, when it comes to Israel, I think is how long Israel can sustain this war. Looking at what is happening in Iran, and every time they come with a rhetoric on the part of Donald Trump, that Donald Trump says, I'm not going to negotiate with them. I'm not going to, we're going to attack. We're going to continue attacking Iran, he said recently. And he was, the reporter asked the Iranian foreign minister about if Iran is prepared for ceasefire or negotiations. Here is what Araghchi said.
Exactly.
This weekend, he is not ready to make a deal with Iran because the terms aren't good enough yet. His administration is saying this war could last another 3.5 weeks or so. Has Iran asked for a ceasefire?
No, we never asked for a ceasefire, and we have never asked even for negotiation. We are ready to defend ourselves as long as it takes. And this is what we have done so far, and we continue to do that until President Trump comes to the point that this is an illegal war with no victory And, there are, people being killed only because President Trump wants to have fun. This is what he has said.
Yeah. The main point that, Pepe, you don't see, even following the Persian media, you don't see any sort of rush in what's going on. They are so much prepared. They are so much patient. They don't have to put an end to the conflict, as Donald Trump tries to do as soon as possible. They're so much comfortable. They are confident that they can continue this war as long as it takes. On the other hand, you don't see that much of confidence in Israel. I don't know how much you follow the Israeli media. There's so much, you see a lot of desperation coming out. And right now, nobody knows where is Benjamin Netanyahu. He wasn't there, and we've seen 2 AI videos. I don't know how can we translate that. He's hiding somewhere, or he was killed in an operation. Nobody knows what is happening right
Nobody
now.
knows. Yeah. Crappy AI videos there.
Yeah, exactly.
Zillions of people on the net pointed to all the discrepancies on both videos so far. There are probably going to be more. They don't even bother to do something that is convincing, which proves that they must be, submerged by all sorts of hell around them. Look, it doesn't matter what Trump says anymore, really, because it's rambling, because it's an accumulation of fake news and lies, accusations, racism. When he talked about directly, he talked about the bad DNA in Iran. He insulted the whole population of Iran and the Iranian diaspora as a whole. So this is as cheap and as low. How low can you go? In terms of Trump, he can go lower than anybody. In fact, it's the only thing that he knows how to do. And never backing down, because that's how he learned to conduct business from his mafioso masters, in New York and New Jersey. So that's irrelevant. What is not irrelevant is his in command of extremely destructive power. There's no question. Even the Americans, even with all their losses, they are immensely violent and immensely destructive. And of course, it's no wonder that the unthinkable is resurging here and there and everywhere, which would be resort to tactical nuclear weapons, or even a nuclear weapon, either from the US or from Israel, or both. If it happens, it will be obviously concerted. So that's why it's so dangerous, because you're dealing with an irrational megalomanian cycle, totally cornered. He brought this on himself. He cannot throw his bunch of ultra mediocre cycle funds and whatever under the bus, because first of all, because nobody believes him. He made the ultimate decision. Since we cannot trust on anything coming from American media, whatever that is, New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, Axios, all of these lie for business. And they lie to protect their assets, to protect their jobs, to protect their position inside the Michimat, industrial, military, congressional, intelligence, media, academia, think tank complex, in the definition of our friend Ray McGovern. So you cannot trust anything they say. Sometimes they leak stuff that may be closer to the truth. Like some people may have told Trump what he was getting into before the war. It's possible. Certainly not Tweedledee and Tweedledum, the immensely stupid Witkoff and Kushner. Certainly not the Christian Zionist Secretary of Forever Wars. Maybe some other people who are not named, by the way, specifically, who alerted him that don't do that. But now it's too late. And now it's too late and there's no way out. So we keep coming back to hubris going up non-stop. and there's nothing to stop it. And like we were commenting before, even if he proposed a ceasefire and he said, I'm out, it doesn't matter, because the effects are already rolling. The negative effects for the whole global economy, the negative effects for US interests all across West Asia, the negative effects for Israel becoming, on the way to, it could be easily raised to parking lot level by Iran within the next few 2, 3, 4 months, if this keeps going on. And the effects are already there. And even minor effects like the Chihuahuas, all yapping, no, we're not going to join your strike force to liberate Hormuz. We don't want to get killed ourselves. This is we can say this with the comic tinge because it is comic. And obviously he gets even more enraged because he said, no, look, I helped you, NATO, in Ukraine. Now you have to help me, the US, in Iran. It's a completely different story. Completely different story. The US didn't help shit in Ukraine. NATO is controlled by the US. The war in Ukraine is a NATO war against Russia, proxy war, where NATO is controlled by the US. This is how it works. Anybody that has anybody in primary school knows that,
I think the key point is from Germany, Pepe, because they said, what else can we bring to the table? Because
basically he's saying, I am a little chihuahua here in Europe. I have nothing to offer you. It's humiliating for a former great trading power who wanted to become one of the leading 3 or 4 superpowers in the world, now reduced to the status of a mere sobbing chihuahua. It's pathetic. They deserve it. They also brought this on themselves.